Order! Send Lowerhouse to save the house! Come on, the house!
Good morning. Welcome to this special edition of the Housecast. Again, I'll mention we're very kindly sponsored by Johnny Russell at Milltown Pies and Art Caterers. Thanks very much, Johnny. I know you've been in touch and you're listening to all these, so we really appreciate that, and we appreciate. I'm sure Stanny's thinking if you'll start paying for your sponsoring, that might be helpful. Stanny's smiling there. So, yeah, check him out online on Twitter, Facebook and everywhere else, and obviously his shop on Con Road. We have got other sponsors who are looking to come in and assist us with this, and so watch out for breaking news around those other sponsors coming in. If the listeners can subscribe to their specific podcast providers, it helps us out with sponsorship, with sorting out the figures for how many's listening, and does help us out. So that's great. I'm Jez. I'm hosting this special edition with our MD, Matt Stansfield. Good morning, Stanley. How are you?
Not so bad, Jez. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. We had a bit of a family stroke Nicky Holt run bingo last night, which was fancy dress over Zoom.
Right, okay.
Which was entertaining, as you can imagine. Went on probably a little bit too long, yeah, but we're good. How are you going on with your two twins back at home, Stanley? You and three girls locked in.
There aren't three girls here anymore. And there's a lot of loose soil on the patio out the back. Not saying it's not going well, but no. To be fair, they've been very good. They've got each other to bounce off, so they do keep each other entertained when they're not falling out and fighting with each other. But on the whole, I can't grumble. I don't think they've been good.
Oh, that's good. That's good, Stanley. Also on this, to assist me hosting it, we've got one of our resident presenters, Gary Morehouse. Morning, Gaz. How's it going up or down there still?
Morning, Jez. Yeah, all going well. Whitish day yesterday. Weather's great. Stuck some new curtains up that we've been waiting for since pre-lockdown. The local business managed to get those out to us, and so that was my job yesterday. Hoping to get bank holiday off now, but you never know. Fran will have some more duties somewhere lined up.
I've no doubt.
Why don't you have a drive up here today? It seems to be you're allowed to these days, I think, aren't you?
Yeah, that'd be all right if I still had some family up there, Matt. But everyone else has cleared off as well.
Yeah,
right, no, fair enough.
Great, that's Gary. Is that an indoor chimney that I can see behind you, Gary, for a log burner?
It is, yeah. Yeah, obviously I work for a manufacturer, and that's one of our products. So. Yeah, and toasty in winter, that's handy.
I bet. I've just got a price for one fitted in our kitchen, so I might have a chat with you off air and see what you think of this price I've got.
Yeah, not a problem.
Anyway, enough of foreigners and small talk. Stanley, you've requested to come on the podcast really to give everyone an update around the club, where we're at, where we're going with it, etc. People who are listening, we've got so many listeners, we're up to like almost 500 listeners a show now, Stanley, and it is increasing. So just, me and you have known each other for absolute donkey's years. You're quite a bit younger than me, but I think it's worth just going through a little bit of your history at the club. You're obviously the younger brother of Paul Stansfield, who we've had on. Just give us a bit of a history about, what your early memories at the club and how old you were, etc., if you don't mind, Matt.
Yeah, no problem. My history's not dissimilar to Paul's in that it was my granddad who first got me down the club back in the early 80s. Sort of watching first 11 games. I think the first players that I really remember are Stan, Iggy were sort of the stars of the show back then. Alan Alding, another one, Phil Astin. They're the first players that I sort of really remember as a kid watching, and then I'm sort of watching. Went into running the score box, doing the tins on the score box.
Yeah.
And sort of playing a bit of junior cricket. Got in the under 13s when I was sort of 11, 12. Actually made my third team debut probably around the same time as I made my under 13s debut, on the basis that one bank holiday Monday we had no players. Al Paul was called in. Blez and Matt played in that game as third team. It was actually quite a funny game because I think I seem to recall that we were playing Rishton, and Rishton scored about 170.
Right.
And we batted second chasing, and we literally, the team we had out was as scratch can be. Like I say, I was about 11. A player who played a lot of games for Rishton, actually, called Johnny Dobson. I think I recall him getting 8 for, and I don't think he was known as a bowler. But he got about 8 for, and then we actually knocked them off. But Blez got 96 or 90 odd not out. Your Matt got 70 not out. The rest were extras, and I think we were 8 down at the point that we knocked them off. So no one else in the team scored a run other than Matt and Blez, really.
About 11 then, Stanley.
Yeah, and then obviously I didn't play. I only played that game in the third team because they literally had nobody to. It was pick me or get a fine type thing. And then played in the under 13s. Reg Wardle was the coach back then, similar to Al Paul. Now I don't know if I think I told you the other week. Reg contacted me out of the blue the other week. 86-year-old, and honestly, it was remarkable talking to him. He remembered all the names, all the people, all the characters. He remembered quirks in the way people played. For example, Joe Beneducci. He told a story about Joe Beneducci not being the most technically gifted,
right?
But being able to stick in and sort of hang around, if you will. So it was really interesting to hear from Reg. And like I say, just completely out of the blue. I was sat at work, and obviously, from a work point of view, I get phone calls from different numbers all the time. So I just picked up the phone. Old voice comes on. Hey, is that Matthew? Yeah, it's Reg Wardle. Jesus. Correct. So really, it was great to speak to him. And like I say, absolutely sharp as a tack.
Where is he standing now? Where is he living?
He's in Red Roof Cricket Club, is it? Down south somewhere. I think it's near your way more than us, Gary, these days. Yeah, so he's down there. He moved there in 1998, he said on the phone. Just sharp as a tack, remembered everything about everybody. He did mention your dad as well, Jez, which was nice to hear. Sadly, he asked how it was going on, and I had to break the news to him, but these things happen.
Of course they do, yeah, that's right. And but that's fantastic, because we chatted it through on these podcasts previously, Stanley, that Reg and Bill Holt and that sort of era, that was the start of the junior section. I would, and probably just before my time even. I know you find that difficult to believe. But,
yeah, Bill's not someone I recall, but it was all Reg Wardle. When you went down, it was Reg Wardle. Yeah. I remember when there was sort of in that era, at that point, there was myself, Gavin Shields, Matt Marquis, Charlie Cotton joined us when he was about 13, moved over from Bury into the area, so he joined in when he was about 13. Johnny Russell, Joe Beneducci was sort of all in that 2-year group there. I remember because they thought we had something about us, and obviously some of us did, some of us not so much. Harry Brooks paid for Graham Bushell to do some coaching for us when we were about 14, 15 as well, to try and sort of give us that extra nudge along to be a bit better than what we were. And like I say, for some it worked, and for others it was probably a bit of money wasted, to be quite frank.
Don't be daft. It's great for everyone. And like you said, we've some great memories, some great games, and long may it continue. Long may it continue, Stanley.
Gordon, send Morehouse to save the house. Come on, the house!
So that really brings us on to why you've requested to come on the show. You mentioned that you want to get out to the spectators and the fans and the the members about what state of play is at the club. So go on, feel free to let us know, in these very difficult times, what's going on at the cricket club.
Yeah, obviously, it couldn't, things as far as timing and what have you for a cricket club couldn't have been worse, could it? The government called the lockdown literally 2 to 3 weeks before the season's about to start. Every club, I know I've spoken to chairman of various other clubs, all in a similar position insofar as you've already engaged your pro, you've spent all your money prepping for the season, things like all your wicket repairs, all the things that cost all the money over the winter have been spent.
Yeah.
And then the point where you've got a chance of recouping a little bit of that, unfortunately, for reasons outside of everyone's control, the plug gets pulled. So it's a difficult time for every cricket club, and it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out beyond this. From our sort of individual point of view, if we look at it as far as income's concerned, our only guaranteed income at the moment is the 100 club money that you kindly facilitate for us, Jez, and thank you for that. Yeah, but that is literally the only income against a list of sort of outgoings that have to continue. So utility bills, groundsman's salary, although the groundsman's hours have been vastly reduced, we need to pay to keep the upkeep. You've got things like insurances that need to be paid. So there's a sort of list of things of liabilities that we can't escape, that have to be paid on a monthly basis, and very limited income. Now, from a timing point of view for us, we'd had the annual draw, which had obviously raised a reasonable amount of income. We'd already obviously had the bonfire in November. Again, that's probably our biggest money earner of any event at the moment, and does take all the pressure off in the winter months. But beyond that, our sort of revenue streams are functions, and functions of which we had a relatively full calendar stopped overnight. We'd got ourselves into the position in the last few months as well where we had a lot of things happening at the club during the week that were generating income. So we had the Smile Club, which is a group that meets on a sort of twice weekly basis for people with learning difficulties. We had things like Weight Watchers there. We had Pilates clubs, all kinds of things going on that were actually generating income and covering costs during the week. But again, because of what's happened, all that sort of stops overnight. Yeah. So then it's really been a case of working out what the liabilities are, working out what our income's going to be, and then filling in the gaps around it. Now, what I'd like to say is a massive thank you to the members, because we've had a great response to our request for subs payments. It's made a massive difference in taking a lot of pressure off. That's something that we are really thankful for, because we appreciate that it's not easy for everybody. Everyone's in, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are our members that are furloughed and things like that at the minute. So their incomes have also reduced. So to commit to paying the subs by the members has been fantastic, and that has taken a lot of pressure off. One other thing, sorry, that I should have mentioned that fell by the wayside was the Beer and Gin Festival. Adam, Frank and Tony in particular have done a massive amount of work to get the Beer and Gin Festival going, and we look like we're heading towards a bumper sellout weekend over the Easter weekend. And again, sadly, what would have been probably a second bonfire type event for us, plug unfortunately had to be pulled. So that's sort of where we're at the minute as far as our own income's concerned, and where we see ourselves as things stand.
The optimism in your voice is really refreshing, Stanley. It's really good that the 100 Club, the Lowerhouse draw is assisting and keeping the club going, which is fantastic, and it's easy to do. And there's so many members in it, and no one complains. It's a really, really easy way of generating some cash to keep the club going. Which, if anyone wants to join who's not already in, then just give us a shout on Twitter. Or contact any of the committee or the players, and they'll get in touch with me and we can sort that. And then the other thing, Stanley, is the members that are actually paying the subs just to keep it going. That is fantastic, and it just shows what the club's about. I'm sure it's happening at other clubs, but it is. it's fantastic to hear. Is that's really good.
As a club, Frank does a fantastic job organising the membership and the annual draw as well. To be honest, he does a sort of a fantastic job organising and mobilising the membership for us. He's done that this year. I think probably the position right at the minute is that as a club, I think we've got the biggest membership in the league. But as it stands, I think we've probably had 2/3 of sub-payments made, roughly, which when you consider that there's a likelihood that a lot of those people aren't going to get to see any cricket this year, or a possibility, should I say, that they're not going to get to see any cricket. I think that's testament to the membership that we've got, just how supportive they are to us as a club.
Yeah, it's fantastic that. Gary, you're miles away. I know you're a member of the draw and you're a member of the club, etc. Have you any observations from your end?
You're doing this in your own time as well. You've got your own business and your family and everything else going on. So all credit to yourself and the people on the committee that are trying to work all this out. I think what would be interesting is what other areas of external support have or haven't been available that, because obviously there's been help for sort of small businesses. I mean, I don't think we have employees as such. So, in terms of being able to sort of furlough some wages, is tricky, etc. And also following on from that is, given there isn't really a clear point in which we might start some sort of activity, what sort of plans are being put in place for any sort of opening where, social distancing, flow around the club or around the ground and things like that are in place?
Yeah, just on the sort of external support, we've had, for example, the Beer and Gin Festival, we had a lot of people pay sponsorship into that to start with. The likes of Birchall, Catering, Alderson Oram, Motorpoint, various businesses paid in and have been kind enough, really. MKM, our neighbours at the building supplies merchants, they've been kind enough to leave the sponsorship money in for us, which obviously makes things easier. Our main club sponsor, SPE, made their payment about a week before lockdown commenced. And again, we're very thankful for them for their ongoing and continuing support. As far as different external funding, been able to avail ourselves of the government business rates grant because the bar is obviously considered to be hospitality. So we've been able to secure that money, and equally we've been successful in applying for Sport England Community Emergency Fund. We've not had that money in the bank just yet, but that we've had confirmation that our application's been accepted and we'll receive the money within 28 days. So we've been able to, what I would consider myself, secure the sort of immediate future. And I'm sort of confident that even if the ball's not bowled this year, we've enough to see ourselves through to sort of this point next year. Now, you've touched on the future there, Gary. My biggest concern, to be honest, is what they keep going on the news about this, the new normal, don't they? And I think my biggest concern is what does that new normal look like for a business like the cricket club? Because we do rely on private functions to generate income. Beer is what fills our bank accounts up. Selling beer fills the bank on a weekly, monthly basis, and it's what allows us to do all the various things that we do with the coaching, with Stan, etc. Now I know that we've got a number of functions booked in, private functions booked in beyond when they're sort of anticipating that certain lockdown measures might be lifted. And again, testament to Stan and Rusty for keeping that going at the moment, in that they're having to, obviously, functions that are falling by the wayside week on week. So we're doing a month by month at the moment. So when we get to the start of May, we start cancelling all the functions in June and so on. So Rusty and Stan are driving around paying money back to people that paid deposits and all those kind of things. So again, testament to them for doing that. But yeah, it's just we've got enough income to see us through. I just do worry whether in the future functions are going to be as popular as what they were pre-lockdown. Are people going to change the way that they go about social activities? Will it be a benefit to us having all that outside space? Will that be something that people see as a great way of getting together without the risks associated with being locked up in a tiny pub? I don't know, and I don't think anybody knows, which is what makes it sort of difficult to plan for, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I've not thought of it like that, Stanley. I like to think I'm involved and I help where I can at the club. But what you're alluding to there is probably what all corporate businesses and who there's no cricket, that they're going to have to come up with these sort of plans, aren't they? As well, it really is an unknown situation that no one's ever been in.
Yeah, the government, the support from the government for businesses is, as in my opinion, obviously the cricket club and businesses I'm involved in myself, has been excellent. My business relies on cars crashing into each other, and there's no cars on the road to crash into each other at the moment. So, so we're quiet. I think the government support's been great, but I do think that a lot of it is aimed at trying to stop the bigger problems that probably come post lockdown, and we all have to wait and see, don't we? Because I don't think that anybody knows exactly what's going to happen in the future yet.
Yeah, it is. It's let's hope that by getting this out there, a little bit selfishly for the cricket club, let's hope that by getting this out to all the fans and all the spectators, when things start to ease a little bit, people understand that and understand that there's going to be different ways of working and different measures at the club and how you get your back, how you play cricket. It's just the actual physically the players being in the dressing room together. That's something that we'll obviously need considering as well. So. Yeah, difficult times, Stanley, difficult times, but you do sound upbeat about it.
I think the reason why I'm upbeat about it, Jez, is because of the club that we are and the people that we've got. And I think that we've spent years and years making silk purses out of sow's ears, haven't we?
Yeah.
And I think that in this situation sort of stands us in good stead. There's not many clubs being in the position that we've been in and rebuilt and got back to where we are. I was listening to one of the other podcasts from one of the other clubs the other day, and one of them mentioned about how Lowerhouse, for example, a 2020 night at Lowerhouse is a fixture that every cricketer wants to play in. Now, it's great to hear things like that, and it's great to sort of appreciate that all these other clubs see what we do, appreciate it really, and when they get the chance to come and join in one of them, and there's 1,000 people there watching, they absolutely love it themselves. Yeah. But again, that's testament to the hard work of the people there behind the scenes, making everything tick over on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a good point that you make. I do like that. We making purses out of people's ears. It is a good analogy, and we've done it for so long. And the people before us did that. They talk about custodians of cricket, and that's what we are. And and we will get it back. It might be different, but it will be back. No, so I'm really encouraged about those words.
Just on the silk purse out of sow's ears thing, I mentioned at the start I used to, obviously my granddad was how I first came down to the club. And one of the things that we used to do was in the school holidays, when it was my granddad's time to look after us, he'd take us down to the club during the week, and there'd be little bits of jobs. He'd be mending the tins, he'd be doing all kinds of little bits of things. But you always had, Jack Hayes was there all the time. Joe Waterworth was there all the time. Harry Young was always tending to the gardens on the far side, Graham Young's dad. So I remember all of that. And when I started doing the score box, my granddad was like maintaining the tins and things like that for us and making sure that the over numbers were visible, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Myself and Andrew Wren started a scorebox refurbishment fund, and effectively what we did was we donated every week out of our wages. Mine at the time was £3 for doing the tins. His was £8 for scoring. We donated, say, 50p out of that money back towards making improvements in the scorebox, and we bought a tin of paint and 1 or 2 other bits with it, and spent one day in the summer holidays painting. But I don't know if you remember, Jez, they used to do in the clubhouse occasionally like junk auctions. Do you remember those?
I do, yeah. Yeah.
And do you remember them, Gary? I can't remember whether it was, I think either Clifford or Steve Krupinski, somebody was auction master on this particular night. And one of the items that was in the auction was an old wall clock. And we thought that'd be absolutely perfect. Back wall in the score box. Every score box needs a clock because you've got to write the times in the scorebook, etc. So we had our little fund that we collected, the scorebox refurbishment fund, and we sat down at the back of the room ready for the auction. And we started auctioning all the items, and it got to this clock. And Clifford or Steve Krupinski said, right, I'll start the bidding at 4 pence. So someone at the front puts their hands up, 4 pence, 8 pence, 12 pence. Andrew Wren sticks his hand up at the back of the room and says, £2.
Brilliant.
From 12 pence to £2. And I looked at him, and obviously I was only about 11 or 12 years old. I looked at him and said, why have you just bid £2 for someone that was selling at 12 pence?
So you were earning money from the club, donating it back to a fund, and then buying something from the club to give it back to the club.
Absolutely. So the club was winning every which way up, and I know that Gary mentioned working the bar the other night. So that people, when you mention that to other clubs, we all used to work the bar and this, that, and the other. They think they look at it as if to say, I can't believe you did that, and how come you ended up doing that?
Yeah.
But I don't know about you two, but I thought it was great fun at times. We had some absolute riots on those nights working the club. I remember doing one where it was a padium do, and all the pumps broke. Within half an hour, the pump system just completely, that distribution thing went down. So we had to sell 2 bottles at the same price as a pint. And the morning after turns up to the game. So leaves the club at 1 o'clock. Managed to avert a riot of all the padium. turns up at the game the day after and gets a bollocking off Rusty because 2 bottles sells for £4 and a pint's £2. So
you got bollocked for using your initiative.
We had a room full of thirsty paddy, and there's something I had to give somewhere.
Gordon, send more house to save the house.
I think it's a great story, that, Stanley. That really speaks a lot about you and, you know, the way the club is run. And, you know, like you said, we've been through some times before. You know, can you remember that? Well, you'll have heard the story, I've no doubt, Stanley, when your granddad, Jack Cochran, and my dad used to go around picking up nails up after bonfire. And they would literally I don't even think they used a magnet. They would get all the nails. And then, you know, they would say, well, they're useful. We will use these nails again. And then we'd catch them and end up straightening some of them.
Them tins, my granddad used to look after them. And he greased them. It was actually remarkable that they lasted as long as they did. Yeah. But that was just by somebody taking the time and care because we couldn't afford any new ones. Yeah. To just make the best of what we had with the ones that we had. It used to be an horrible sound, didn't it, when you were bowling, and you got it for 4 or 6, and you hear the ching 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 going in the background. Yeah, but even terrible.
That, Stan, I'm sure Gary can remember this. Can you remember before we even had the box? You know, the tins that you'd literally flick round. It used to be a sheet metal, you know, 18-inch by 12-inch piece of metal that were painted black with a white number painted on it. You remember that, Gaz, won't you?
If any of those hooks or screws that they hang on were missing or loose, you didn't really want to be walking in front of the scorebox below there, because there were a number of times there were near misses where, you know, a toddler walking below who could have lost a limb or something. They were unreal.
Without a doubt.
I think it was Jack Cochran who once got hit on the head by one that I dropped. He was stood in front of the scorebox, and I think the 100 had come up, and I leant in the window to hang the number up because we didn't have a tin for the 100s, did we?
Right.
So I think when we bought the tins, we probably didn't think we'd need them with the way we were shopping. But so we only had the hang up numbers for the 100s, and I dropped it out the window. I'm sure it was Jack Cocker, and it's on the edge, stood in front of the. So I think that's where he used to stand, isn't it, Jack?
Yeah, right under the scoreboard. Yeah. Fantastic times and memories. And like you said, Stanley, let's hope that this, gives everyone the boost and we can all look forward and, come up with ideas and help all we can. Have you had much from the league exec as far as, the state of play, any timescales, any cut-off points?
The sort of initial advice from the league exec was they didn't expect any play up until, I think, they went for the mid-season point. So I think the natural break in the fixtures for mid-season was something like the 8th of July. And they said to us that they were aiming for that date. The most recent update was a bit more open-ended than that. And I think Mick Bibby sort of indicated that he didn't think there's going to be any cricket before August. And that would make it difficult to do anything meaningful. I was a little disappointed at the outset with the league exec in that they made a call very early to decide that whatever we did was going to be non-competitive. I didn't necessarily think that was the right thing to do because I do think the lads have waited for months and months to have a game. It means more if there's a little bit of something riding on it. Now, I wouldn't sort of advocate that the team should be relegated or things like that in a half-season scenario. Yeah. But I didn't see any harm in playing for some kind of trophy or recommendation or recognition, that kind of thing, really.
Yeah.
So I was a little bit disappointed with that. We obviously, when the league made that call, we then had a decision to make in relation to the professional Obus Pienaar, who we were really looking forward to having over and seeing play. He's an exceptional cricketer by all accounts, and quite explosive as well on his day. But I'm pleased to say that he was absolutely magnificent with us. Kept dialogue with him right from the point it sort of appeared there was going to be a problem, until the point that we had to obviously make a call to say, sorry, but bearing in mind the sort of uncertainty around everything, we're not going to be able to commit to the contract. So it's a real shame because I was really looking forward to seeing Obus over here because he's a player. I don't know if you know this, Jez, but you've probably come close to signing him 2 or 3 times in the past.
Right.
The first time we signed him, we came close to signing him was actually the year that we signed Frankie first.
All right.
So it came down to a straight toss-up really between Obus and Frankie, and at that point Obus was bowling quick, left arm quick, and the decision was that they just thought Frankie's bowling would maybe be better suited to us than what Obus's was. He went to Ireland that year and broke A.B. de Villiers' batting record. So thankfully, the signing of Frankie worked out equally as well for us. So we can't grumble, can we? But
yeah, that's when the winning streak started, wasn't it? So
it was.
It really was. But yeah, I have looked at his stats and looked at what he does, and I was excited about watching him play. So have you left it open that there's potential opportunities for him to come back in future years, or is that? Yeah. I've sort of we've not agreed anything with him or anything to that extent yet. But what we have done is said we'd like first refusal on him next year if he's coming back. I think he's got 1 or 2 things he needs to iron out back home. The system over there is changing again a little bit. They have the franchise system, don't they? And he was playing franchise cricket this year, but with the quotas and various other things, unfortunately, he's lost his current franchise deal. But he's expecting that he's going to be continuing in first class cricket for at least another season. So we've said to him that if that is the case and he wants to come back next summer and we're in a position to take him back, then we'd like first refusal really on his services.
You mentioned there, Stanley, about in a position to take him back. I mean, one thing that's been raised in other leagues, and I think Mike Bibby's statement touched on it, was that for the next full season, some leagues would consider playing without professionals. Obviously, it's the biggest match day, and probably for some clubs the biggest seasonal outgoing. What's your position on that?
I've always been very staunch. We've got to protect the pro thing, and for me, the longer we can keep with pros, and the longer we can continue to engage pros within our clubs within the league, we absolutely have to. And I would understand if clubs were reluctant in the current environment, but at the same time, if there is a way of making it happen to keep pros in the league, I think we've really got to, because I think once we dispense of that, I think we are opening ourselves wide up to the paid amateur thing and what have you. And I think that the only thing that will benefit is the real wealthy clubs. And whilst we're not a wealthy club, we're not a skint club either, so to speak. But I do think that we're one of the clubs that will be really threatened by the introduction of paid amateurs, on the basis that we put so much effort and money into producing cricketers. It would be really disappointing if all that time and effort was basically spent, and ultimately when these lads get to 16, 17, 18, somebody comes along with 40, 50 quid a game and they disappear down that route, because we're not in a position to compete with that. So I'm a big believer that we've got to keep the pros, on the basis that I think it protects clubs against what I would think is a worse situation of paid amateurs, because I think once that gets into the league, there's no way back, I don't think.
Yeah, I agree with that, Stanley. I agree with everything you've said. It's a different type of game once you start getting, let's call them journeymen, who travel from club to club. They don't care about the club, and it's everything that we aren't, in my view. I don't follow sort of semi-professional football so much, but when you used to, when the Telegraph, Lancashire Telegraph used to be really good at the cricket coverage, when you used to have the Monday night sort of coverage of what had happened in the league over the weekend. I remember picking the paper up, and you'd have, say, such and such managers moving from Padiham to Barnoldswick, and 8 of the players were going with him, weren't they? You'd think to yourself, well, it just doesn't seem, to me, I don't know, how do you build a club around that? Because I do think, Stan always goes on about this, and I think to some extent he's right. A lot of what is good about our league is the fact that a lot of the people watching work with the people that are playing games, or they see them in the Rose Grove, they see them around the place, don't they? Yeah. And it builds a bit more affinity than a lad who's just driven in from out of town or from the next town along just to pick up his money. Yeah, and that we called a community club, and that is exactly what you've just described. Exactly what you've just described there. So, just going back, I made a few notes there, Stanley. The Beer and Gin Festival, then, I remember that, and it was a fantastic weekend as well. The weather, wasn't it? I'm just looking, is that something you would look to resurrect, hopefully, all things being equal, even if there's no cricket towards the end of the summer? We discussed it tentatively on the basis that we didn't want to commit to anything around what might be the cricket calendar, and also around what other functions we may already have booked in. Also, we don't really want to encroach on any possibility that the bonfire may go ahead if that's possible. Who knows at this stage? But again, a massive earner for us. So we sort of, in our minds, decided that what we would do with the Beer and Gin Festival is just start again next year. When we get to Easter next year, look to have the exact same event pending for that weekend, and just hope that the weather is as kind to us next year as it was this year. I'm going to move on, Stanley, just to the podcast and your thoughts about the podcast and what's been said previously. Gary, is there anything from yourself around the serious stuff and about the future of the club before we move on?
The guidance in terms of maintaining the grind, obviously being able to get up and running quickly. People might be thinking they want to come down and help out and can't. Or is there anything there that's worth mentioning about jobs around the grind that need doing?
Yeah, absolutely. We do have our regular helpers that go down to see Stan. My mum has done a religious painting of every single bench on the ground again. just purely to get herself out of the house, to be honest with you. With people obviously come down and help cut the grass. And to be honest with you, we're able to do all of that with appropriate social distancing, applied stands organising all of that. So if anybody is at a loose end and wants to kill some time, I'm sure if you bob down during the week, stands around, he'll certainly find you something to do. And I don't, Gary, you won't have been obviously, but I know Jez has been down to the club. The place looks absolutely immaculate as well, doesn't it? It looks in fantastic nick. So it's a real shame, to be honest with you, that we're not going to get out there and play on it in the near future. This is another frustration, really. In the last sort of couple of years, we've spent a lot of money on the square and equipment for the ground and keeping the ground. We had some aeration thing done this year, which was meant to add more bounce into a little bit more bounce into the square, where they literally drill holes down into the ground and then fire air out at a lower level. So it all sounds a bit gimmicky to me, but apparently Stan says it works. So we spent a good few £100 getting that done on the main wickets. Like I say, we've spent all the money on the lawnmowers and all the various kit that Stan's requested. And last year we had a massive commitment on the net lanes, where we did the renovation of them, which stood us to the tune of about 13 grand. So it's just the frustration, I think, at the minute is we've got all these facilities that to be quite frank, are being either not used or underused. I was pleased when the ECB issued the guidance about training and practice, and all that. A lot of the lads have been going down in pairs and doing a little net to keep their eye in line with the ECB guidelines and whatever. So it's good to see that that's happening, but it is a real shame when you look at the place that we're not out there playing on it at the moment.
The podcasts, are they useful? Is it something that you've been getting into?
Yeah, I think I've listened to every one so far. It was just the Macca one that I hadn't listened to until yesterday. I think they've been excellent, to be honest with you, Jez. I love the old stories. I love all the things that have been discussed and all the reminiscing. It amazes me sometimes the detail that people can remember about certain things, and equally sometimes the detail that people forget about a particular story, where you think to yourself, well, I remember that happening, and I remember this also happening around the same time. It's like a couple of examples that spring to mind. I was listening to Gary's the other day, and he mentioned the game at Enfield, where we won from nowhere that season, 95 season, wasn't it? Where I think, like Gary said, they needed something like 2 to win off the last over. We got 3 wickets in the last over, won by a run. Absolutely fantastic game. But one game that sticks in my memory that season was an old style Lowerhouse hammering, where we played away at Nelson, and I think it was a Saturday afternoon as well for some reason, and Nelson racked up 310, I think it was, something like that. So they smashed 310. We chased those Skidoo in. A fella called Tipu Khan or something like that. I can't remember. He kept smacking the ball into the bowling green. So real bad day. Been pummeled all over the park. And if you remember back then, Nelson was one of the only grounds that had like a tannoy system. And I was scoring that day. And picks up the scorebook, starts walking across the ground towards the dressing rooms, and they announce on the tannoy, we're pleased to announce that this is a Lancashire League record limited overs score, breaking the previous record of such and such. So I'm stood with the scorer for Nelson. I said, that's not right. Rottenstall smacked 319 against us last year. Michael Bevan smashed us all over last year. So I tells the Nelson scorer. He then goes up onto the balcony where the tannoy bloke is, tells him. So the tannoy bloke issues a retraction in which he references the fact that it's wrong. Lowerhouse's scorers just told us that they got it for 319 last year at Rottenstall. So obviously all the people, it was red hot day as well. All the people on the ground then start laughing. Gary opens the dressing room door and bollocks me for basically showing us off in front of everybody.
No, you were put the record straight.
Yeah, I was just I didn't want everyone to go on thinking they'd witnessed a record, but I remember that really well.
That is interesting. So Gary, you know what, with Stan and Gary's banter that they have over that period of time with Van Moorhausen, so we'll have to get Stan involved. The skipper even bollocked the young scorer.
Scorer for telling him that he won a record. It's been great to listen to the old stories and some of the characters and people that not necessarily that you forget, but you sort of put to the back of your memory. So when I first started in the second team, there's Blanchard League had been putting old scorecards on, and there was a game, like a second team game at Accrington, and I don't remember the game at all. I'd have been 17 maybe, but in that team you had like Prop Payne, Dave Worley, Ted Whittle, Shez, Peter Gaynor, some real characters, real proper characters. And I was talking, after I looked at them, I was saying to my brother that probably that period between being 18 and 22 was my favourite time playing cricket, because just because of the dressing room and the banter that we used to have, because so many people that were so quick-witted and funny. That could really like turn a story within seconds into something that was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, the great times. And like you said, the dressing room is probably the place that we all miss the most, you know, as opposed to the actual playing.
Well, I remember one story that really sticks in my mind. It's Nelson again, actually. And it was Iggy. And I implore you to get Iggy on this podcast, because he's one of my favourite storytellers of all time. Is Iggy. Especially if he's a couple of Fosters in, then you've a real chance of getting some gold out of him.
Yeah.
But we were playing in the second team, and we had like there'd have been myself, Charlie, Matt Marquis, Gav, Joe Beneducci had been in that second team. I bet Johnny Russell was maybe in and out of the first team at this point. He sort of made a bit more of a breakthrough than the other ones of us. Because if you remember, Charlie sort of made the breakthrough and then fell back a little bit, didn't he, till he got switched on a bit more.
Yeah.
But so we're playing away. We're in the dressing room and it's absolutely howling it down outside. So we're all sat there, and Peter Gaynor says, "Let's have a sports quiz." So he pulls out, obviously he's come prepared. He pulls out these like quiz cards from his bag, sports quiz cards. And he gets them all out and he says, "Right, we're going to have to split into teams." So someone says youngies versus oldies.
All right.
So you've got the youngsters sat on one side of the dressing room, the oldies sat on the other. But there was a little imbalance in that we had more oldies than we had youngies in the team. So they said, "Iggy, you go with the youngies." They obviously didn't want to give up one of the star performers. They didn't want to give Pete Gaynor up because that might tip the balance in our favour. So they give us Iggy. Iggy comes and sits on our side of the dressing room, and this quiz is going on for 20 minutes or so, and it's quite tight. And Iggy, it gets to like a bit of a tie-break situation, and Pete Gaynor reads a question out, and he says, "Question is, it's bowls." So straight away our hearts sink on the youngsters' side. What do we know about bowls? So he says, the question is, who was the World Bowls champion in 1996? So we're all sat there with absolutely no idea. Iggy says, let me think. Iggy goes, I'll guess at David Goulet. So there's a hushed silence, and Pete Gaynor says, "That's correct." So we've won the tiebreaker. So we all start jumping up and down and diving on Iggy as like the star of the day. Iggy pops his head out of this melee where we're all diving on him and says, "Thank for that. My next guest was Sir Francis Drake." Absolute gold.
Brilliant, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's just stuff like that like I say, the dressing room back in the day.
Yeah, brilliant. And that's, you know, it's like we've said all along, they're the things, you know, a horrendous situation like this, you know, let's try and make the most of it, and let's get these stories out. We definitely look to get Higgy on. I need to explore that.
Yeah, I'm not convinced they'll be able to work Zoom. That might be your biggest problem with Higgy. It might have to be a post-lockdown socially distanced session with him. But how you social distance from Higgy with all his fidgeting and sticking his elbows out all the time? You've no chance, have you?
No.
But,
Stan's got his head around how to work the Zoom now quite well. So I just wondered if there's anything we could do there with them two sat on a bench somewhere outside. But,
yeah. The other one as well that I mentioned to you separately, Lofty. You've probably no chance with Zoom with Lofty, but he tells all the stories about like the Colin Milburn era and all of them.
Yeah.
All the pros and things like that back then. And this is the famous story where I'll not tell it because I can't do it justice in the way where they take the wrong car to the away game and stuff like that. And there's all kinds of stuff that really I'd love to hear from them. But no, as far as the podcasts are concerned and the stuff that's been done so far, I think it's been excellent. And there's some other good content from other places in the league as well. Our friends at Burnley have done some decent stuff as well, haven't they? To be fair to them, begrudgingly give them credit, but they've done some decent stuff as well. So
yeah, no, it is. It keeps everything going.
I don't think mine and Stanny's paths crossed too many times cricketing wise.
I think we played a few second team games. I think I remember you turning up once in the second team, Gaz, when you were sort of in and out of when you sort of played a few games out of the first team, and I remember you turned up. I think it was home against somebody. I remember Ted Whittle used to turn up regularly. He once turned up at Bakewell, and we literally had to carry him up the drive to get him to the dressing rooms. He was that drunk from his night out before, and he got 136 not out, battered the full innings.
Yeah, Ted Whittle. See, that's another one, Stanley. What a great lad he is. What a great cricketer.
He was a very good cricketer. Daft as a brush.
One of the best stories with Ted Whittle was we played down at Burnley and they got Joe Angel as their pro, and he was sharp and he was like 6'9" as well, and Burnley, it wasn't the slow track and it had a bit of bounce in it. So nobody were looking really forward to that game, I'll tell you. And Ted opened batting and he hung around and everyone's getting pinged and Ted were getting pinged on arm and helmet and hands and his toes and all sorts. And he hung around. He probably didn't get so many, but he showed a lot of grit and a lot of determination, a lot of bravery. Traipses off, comes up the terraces there, and one youngster who were watching, I think, or a supporter or somebody said, so is he quick, Ted? Joe Angel, Ted? How quick is he? And Ted just turned around and, didn't even look at him, just as he's walking past, said, I couldn't tell you because of tears in my eyes. I couldn't see it.
Yeah. Because he backed blue, didn't he? Yeah.
Oh, Gav tells a good one in second team. Him and Ted opened batting at home in second team. And we're playing Aslington. And they had a bit of an old concrete second team back then, did Aslington. And I think it was Patrick Lord was opening the bowling. They're walking out to bat, and Ted says to Gav, played lots of cricket against Patrick. He bowls a good Yorker first up. So Ted takes strike. Patrick runs into bowl. Yorker absolutely cleans Ted up. Ball ends up. So he's warned Gav about this Yorker. Gets absolutely cleaned up by it. First ball of the innings. Turns around, looks at his stumps, walks past Gav and says, told you. Carries on his way off.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks very much for coming on, Stanley. Let's all be as optimistic as Matt is for the future of the club and the future of cricket in general, local cricket, and all the best. Thanks very much, everyone.
Send Morehouse to save the house.